You identified him before we launched the show last week. You identified him as one of, if not the most interesting player coming into the year. And I have to agree with you because Kuminga represents a leveling up of the depth of this roster. He represents a guy that you would hope to, if you're the Warriors, you hope he becomes the sixth most important player on the roster, not just a guy that you're wondering if he's on the fringe. So where do you want to start with Kuminga to start breaking down his game?
Oh my goodness, this isn't going to be good news for the Warriors fans. All right, now I'm not closing the book on them by any means. I've been as high on Jonathan Kuminga as anybody that does this for a living from the very beginning. I was hoping here at the start of the year, and what are we? How many games in are we for the Warriors?
Nine, I think nine.
Nine
Nine.
games.
Yep, nine
Um,
games.
Everybody's going to say, "Well, small sample says." I hear you, but when a guy evolves in that off season, when he's this age, you kind of notice a dramatic difference at the beginning of the year.
Man.
And here's where he's still struggling for me. He misses too many shots around the basket he's supposed to make.
Yep.
Let's start with that. Okay. So he's a guy that he's taken 3.5 almost more shots per game this year so far. His field goal percentage has dropped from 52 to 42.
Whew.
Like you're most of it. Now he doesn't take a lot of threes. He takes 2 threes a game. So 8.5 of his shots are pretty much in the paint because he doesn't shoot mid-range shots. He's a guy that's at the rim in the paint or he's shooting a 3. So you're talking about 8 shots a game that are basically in the paint or at the rim, and he's shooting 42% from the field. And look, I'm not talking about these are all contested. Or I saw 3 shots at least last night that he has to put in the basket. They're right there for you. They're point blank. So his concentration level on those is a little disappointing for me. That he's shooting 42% here at the start of the year is disappointing. The other area he struggles in, when he gets a guy on his back that's smaller than him and the ball comes into him, his lack of patience and footwork to get what he wants is surprising 145 games into his career with all of the offseason work. And they got a great developmental staff in that organization. I don't understand if you got a 6'4" guy on you and he gets them all the time on switches. Yeah. How are you not able to pound the ball for 3 controlled dribbles, stay on balance, and then pivot one direction or the other, and then basically overwhelm that guy with your athletic ability going toward the basket with balance and strength? He doesn't. His feet get twisted. He shoots it before he's ready. He doesn't back a guy down at all, and he spins off and takes some odd angled bank shot from off the lane. Those lack of patience plays, I thought I'd see a little bit more out of him now. He's got enough seasoning under his belt. That should come more natural to him because they want him to take the leap. They want to show confidence in him. He hasn't improved in that area. So I think for me, I'm still wondering, is the concentration level there? I'm not closing the book, but right. I wanted to see more here at the first 9 to 10 games of the season based on what I expected from him coming out of the offseason.
I think it's pretty clear if you just watch their games that the Warriors don't fully trust him because he does still have kind of a tight leash in terms of he'll be out there and it's like, hey, they need him to buy some minutes. And if he doesn't play well, he gets pulled. Whereas if you have more trust in a guy, you ride the ups and downs. Sometimes his minutes get really, really low in big games. I think your point, though, is the most important one to me. He on paper, as what the idea of what Jonathan Kuminga is something that's so valuable to this team. The Warriors generate switches as well as anybody in the NBA because of how well they move off ball and you run Steph Curry around. It's so hard to chase him around. He gets mismatches nonstop. With his physical tools, that should be a real weapon to him. And this is why when you talk about the finishing rate at the rim, I actually think the finishing frequency at the rim is one of the things that is concerning to me. He only takes 21% of his shots around the restricted area. That's a guy to me, and I don't know how much of this is team dynamic and how much of this is what target is he aiming at as a player? What is he trying to make himself into? Because to me, his best avenue to a great NBA career is to be an Aaron Gordon type player that just constantly bullies guys inside and makes it impossible for you to switch. You're going to punish the switches wherever they are. Right now, you can put a Fred VanVleet on him. You can put an undersized guy on him and just force him into those tough jump hooks, and he'll settle for them. Sometimes he'll settle for fallaways in the post against a guy 6'2". So for me, That's my big concern about him is what target is he aiming at? And why don't we think of him more of a bully on the offensive end?
Completely agree with you. And I think that something else that bothers me about him, I don't understand. I kind of feel this way a lot of nights about Zion too. Like you're a lot of times arguably the best athlete on the floor. How, if you're Jonathan Kuminga, this month, in the month of November, he is averaging a rebound every 9 minutes.
Hmm.
Okay, so put that into perspective. If this guy's playing starter minutes, 36 to 40 minutes, he's getting 4 boards.
Yeah.
I mean, and less than 1 offensive rebound. How on a team that takes this many threes, that's so centered around Clay and Steph, right, and what they're doing, a lot of long jump shots, my goodness, just be in the vicinity with all these long rebounds off the long misses, and you should be targeting 3 to 4 offensive rebounds every night if you're Jonathan Kuminga. And that's just the long ones. What about the ones where you actually use your athletic ability and go get something off the glass and maybe get a putback and help yourself out? So his rebounding numbers, like what is that? What does that speak to? He's obviously physically put together. He's got great verticality off the floor. Is it lack of instincts for the ball? Is it lack of desire? You don't have the want to go get it. There's no way his rebounding numbers should be 3 a night with that kind of athletic ability. I think it's all tied together. And it's if he would show me growth there, hey, you know what? He's just not finishing right now. But man, oh man, is he attacking the glass and giving himself and his team opportunities? He's not doing that. And I say the same thing about Zion some nights when he's at the elbow or 18 feet and the shot goes up on the other side of the floor and he just turns and starts backpedaling back. And I'm going, are you kidding me? Who's keeping you off the offensive glass? And it's almost like you're conserving energy. If you don't get it, you don't want to have to run the floor to get back. Like, I don't know, what's going on with Kuminga, but that's another area of growth I think he can show. And I don't know how much they're pounding it in his head. Like Jonathan, 20 minutes, 3 rebounds isn't enough. You got to give us more than that. It's all kind of tied together. And right now, obviously, we're both feeling, I think, the same way, underwhelmed. And I think the Warriors probably are as well, even though, look, his scoring average is up to 12 points a game. He's playing a little bit more. He's scoring a little bit more. But there's nothing there to show the leap. And that's what we were looking for.
What about the defensively? What do you see from him this year? Where's he at? And what is his upside? What does he need to get to?
One thing I do like about him, and it started really midseason last year, he definitely is up for the challenge now. Like you can tell when he sees those Jason Tatums of the world, the Kevin Durant's of the world, like the LeBrons of the world, when those guys are coming up the floor with the ball, he wants that now. He's not going to shy away from that. They're not going to try to hide him anymore. Now, he's got to be smarter. I think he gets a little bit overly aggressive sometimes and commits fouls that takes himself out of the game or takes him off that player. So he's got a little bit smarter with that. But I do like the fact that he's up for it. I think he's too upright, to be honest with you. I don't think he gets low enough to really be able to contain the ball laterally as well as he should based on his athletic ability. And I think that's just technique and getting more experience guarding that level player and reading them a little bit more. But the most encouraging sign is he doesn't run from that anymore. Like or I shouldn't say that he ever did. They hid him from it. They don't hide him from that anymore. Those matchups. This is your matchup. This is who you got. Then you got him. Doesn't matter. We're not going to figure out some scheme for you. Go guard that guy and get into him. And he is showing a willingness to do it. So I am encouraged by that.
It's so important for the Warriors have maybe the best knockout punch in the NBA. Their starting lineup, obviously, is just so good. And if you get into a playoff series, you're going to want to play that group as many minutes as you can. To do that, you're going to have to trust other guys to be able to be out on the court in those other minutes so that you can keep them together. You can't afford to stagger a Draymond Green a whole bunch of minutes because now you're taking away from your best punch. So to me, that is what Kuminga represents offensively and defensively. A guy that you could say, you know what, we're giving the starters a little 4-minute rest here because we want to play them together down the stretch of the fourth quarter, and we can trust him. He doesn't have to win those minutes, but you have to make it so that you don't have to break your rotation, your preferred rotation in any given setting. And he's not there right now. In my opinion, he's not there right now. To your point, he's probably 9th or 10th in the circle of trust ranking. And I just think he needs to get up to 6th, 7th, somewhere in there by the time the playoffs start for me to think that the Warriors could compete with the top level of players in the Western Conference.
Yeah, and I think even I don't know, this is kind of telling for me sometimes. Like even when questions are asked about Kuminga, you don't get the impression that whoever's answering the question, whether it's a teammate or coaching staff or the front officer, it may be, it's not like this super, enthusiastic exuberance about where he's headed
Yeah.
and what you're seeing. You know what I mean? It's you don't get that. Like, yeah, he's working, he's doing his thing, and Jonathan's supporting us. It's like, okay, that you don't get that. And I want it so badly for him, because I just see so much there in a league, and I said this earlier about Maxi, in a league full of quick guys, he stands out. In a league full of great athletes, some of the stuff he does stands out athletically. That gives you a great chance in this league. Now it comes down to, I think, what's beating in your chest, what's between your ears, and then what kind of organizational support are you having to get better? And right now, he just turned 21. He still has time, but man, he's going to be under the microscope for me pretty much all year.
This is a tough question, Legs, but aiming at the right target to me is such a big part of team building when you get to the role players. Can you get your guys to do the role that you need them to do? Can Kuminga, if I'm Kuminga's agent or if I'm his friend, I'm saying, okay, they want you to defend, they want you to play bully ball, but those types of players are role players. You get pigeonholed into being a great role player, and maybe you're looking at yourself saying, yeah, but I'm a star. I'm a number two or maybe even a number one. And if I accept that role, is this the best thing for me personally in my career? Is there any conflict there in your mind of what we both think he needs to be for the Warriors versus maybe what he wants to be to maximize his potential as a player?
Absolutely. You just asked the magic question. That is the magic question that guys on really good teams when they're this young need to figure out. And look, he's had a taste of winning and they won a
Yeah.
championship, right? He's got that. Now, I'm not saying that, you don't want to also be a more contributing player on a championship team than he was during that playoff run. Of course you do. But he's been tasting this style and they're in the mix every year and they already won a championship. He's getting a lot of that here early in his career. At some point, if they don't see the progression, number one, they're going to think maybe we can find someone that fits this role a little bit better, a little bit more consistent for us. But and the other side of that is Jonathan Kuminga might be looking around when he's sitting at home and he's watching League Pass, or he just played against one of these teams and he goes, damn, man, I could average 18 in Houston.
Right. Yep.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
so I hear what you're saying, and that is the magic question. Some guys, it hits them one day, and it hits them sooner. That, like, you know what? There's more for me, and it might not happen here. Particularly as long as they're going to continue to try to win championships in the Steph Curry era, which they should until he starts showing decline, which he hasn't. They should every year be trying to do that.
Right.
He's not necessarily going to be fulfilled with his role. And that's a great question. When will that become a tipping point for Jonathan Kuminga and for the organization?
And by the way, this is often phrased as there's like a right answer to that question for a player. Like there's this noble thing to agreeing to be less. And I think of Jeremy Grant, he was in Denver, a team that was on the up, and he chose to leave Denver for the same money and go to Detroit because it was, hey, I can be a role player here, but I want to spread my wings and see how good I can be. And I think there's a nobility even in that desire of you could be a cog in the machine, an important cog, but he wanted to know, can I be a number one option? Can I expand my game and do these different things? So to me, we always phrase this as he should agree to being the seventh best player on a championship team, but I understand why a player might think for themselves. I just wonder if I can be better than that in some way. So it's a tough question, and I think it does play into the equation here.